Hello again, everybody. Today we will be doing a second day of distributive property practice. Today you will actually be distributing negative numbers, which will make the problems just a bit more challenging. So let's go ahead and get started. To start today, let's take a moment to review what we learned in yesterday's video about the distributive property. Now, what we've learned so far is that the distributive property actually applies to two types of problems. The first type of problem that it applies to is a problem where you are multiplying a number. I'm going to call that number A, times a group, and that group can contain addition. So in here I could have something like B plus C. So this is what the distributive property is made for, is to handle problems where we are multiplying a number, like A, by an entire group, in this case B plus C. And what the distributive property tells us we're allowed to do is that we're allowed to take that A and distribute him to each member of the group. So to multiply a number times an entire group, you can simply multiply that number by each member of the group. So let me show you what I mean. Remember what we did yesterday. We brought this plus sign down, and then we distributed the A to the first member of the group. So A times B is AB. And then we distributed our A to the second member of the group. So A times C is AC. Now, the second kind of problem that distributive property will work for is when we are taking a number like A, and we're multiplying it times a group, and that group contains subtraction. Same principle here. Okay, I'm going to put my minus sign down here. To multiply A times the entire group B minus C, I'm going to distribute the A to each member of this group. So I'm going to do the A times the B, which is AB, and then the A times the C, which is AC. So that's how distributive property works. You take the number that is outside the parentheses and distribute that number to every member of your group, which means that you multiply that number times every member of your group. Now, you probably noticed that in all of the examples that I did yesterday and in all of the problems that you did on your assignment yesterday, that I kept our numbers positive. And I did that because positive numbers are easier for us to work with. So the reason for today's video is that we are going to talk about distributing a negative number, and the fact that that means we have to be a lot more careful with our signs, our positives and our negatives. So again today we are going to simplify by using the distributive property. And like I said, now we're going to do this with negative numbers. So I want you to listen carefully, watch the signs. You definitely will want to use a calculator for these to just kind of make sure you don't mess up any of these signs. All right, so here we go. Let's start with a negative 3 times 5x minus 1. Or actually, let me make a quick change here. Let me make that plus 1. Let's start out with a plus in there. So we're doing negative 3 times the group 5x plus 1. So again, here, same thing. Let's start by thinking about what this problem is asking us to do. It wants us to take the number, negative 3, and it wants us to multiply that number by the entire group, 5x plus 1. So here's what I'm going to do. There's a plus sign inside of my parentheses, so I'm going to go ahead and come down here and I'm going to put my plus sign just to get myself ready. To multiply that negative 3 by this group, what I want to do is I want to multiply the negative 3 by each member of the group. So we're going to start out by doing a negative 3 times that first member, which is 5x. So right now I'm doing a negative 3 times 5x. To do that, you are going to multiply a negative 3 times a positive 5. A negative 3 times a positive 5 is a negative 15. And then remember, this x that was attached to that 5 just moves down here and attaches itself to that negative 15. So we do negative 3 times the first member of the group. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15, and then we reattach that x. All right, now we want to multiply negative 3 times the second member of our group. So we're doing a negative 3 times 1. A negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. So I'm going to write that down. So take a look at this answer that we have right now. We have a negative 15x plus a negative 3. Now, again here, we talked about this in the video yesterday. This is really as far as this problem can go. I have no idea what negative 15 times x is. I have no idea what value that is. So I can't add negative 3 onto that because I don't know what negative 15 times x is equal to. But this time, here's something I want to talk to you about. I am not a big fan of something that I'm seeing in this answer. This says I've got a negative 15x plus a negative 3. I don't like these double signs right here. I don't want you to say plus a negative 3. So here's where we're going to fall back on something that you used a lot when you were in middle school. I would venture a guess that probably most, if not all of you, are familiar with the idea of keep it, change it, change it. And so in these problems where we're distributing a negative like we are today, we're going to have to go back to this and use it to help us change that answer. So I don't ever want you to leave these double signs in your answers. I don't ever want you to leave plus a negative or minus a negative. I want you to get away from that. So to get rid of it, we are going to keep it, change it, change it. Now here's what this refers to. The keep it refers to the very first thing in the problem, which is negative 15x. So I'm going to keep that, negative 15x. Change it. My first change it refers to the next thing in the problem, which is this plus sign. So I'm going to change it. And what I'm going to do is change it to the opposite. The opposite of plus is minus. So I'm going to make that a minus sign. And then my last change it refers to the last thing in my problem, which happens to be a negative 3. And again, I want to change that to the opposite. So the opposite of a negative 3 is a positive 3. So when I keep it, change it. So when I keep it, change it, I end up with this answer, negative 15x minus 3. I no longer see those double signs sitting there together. Now I've just got one sign in my problem, and that's what I want. So negative 15x plus negative 3 is the same answer as negative 15x minus 3. That's the exact same answer. So that plus sign that we have right here is really not necessary. This minus sign here shows that that 15x is negative. And this minus sign here, while it is a subtraction sign, also serves as a negative sign to show me that that 3 is negative. So this 15 is negative because of that subtraction sign in front of him, and this 3 is negative because of that subtraction sign in front of him. So that's how I want that answer written. All right, now we're going to need to do several of these. Watch this carefully and make sure you're understanding what I'm telling you about this, because distributing a negative is a little more difficult. All right, let's look at another problem. This time we are going to do a negative 5 times 10x minus 4. So a negative 5 times 10x minus 4. So notice in this problem what we want. We want to take the number negative 5 and we want to multiply it by the entire group 10x minus 4. So let's do this. First things first, we're going to look right here to see what sign we've got. There's a subtraction inside of our group, so I'm going to put a subtraction down here for my answer. The distributive property says that I need to take that negative 5 and multiply it by each member of this group. So first we will do a negative 5 times 10x. Negative 5 times 10x. Negative 5 times positive 10 is negative 50. And then we will reattach that x that we see on the 10. So a negative 5 times 10x is a negative 50x. Now we'll multiply negative 5 times the second member of our group. So we're doing, notice, a negative 5 times 4. Negative 5 times 4 is a negative 20. A negative 20. So after all is said and done, we end up with the answer negative 50x minus a negative 20. Now again here, I want to emphasize to you that I don't like this. I don't like this minus a negative business. I don't like those two signs there together. So we are going to fix it. By using keep it, change it, change it. All right, so we start with keep it. We keep the first term in our answer, so we keep a negative 50x. Okay, we change it. We change the second thing we see in the problem, which is this minus sign. Minus changes to its opposite, which is plus. Change it. We change the last number in the problem, which is a negative 20, to its opposite, which is a positive 20. So instead of negative 50x minus a negative 20, this is the answer that I would want to give you to give me, negative 50x plus 20. Now I want to point out something here. Your negative 50 is still negative 50. But notice your negative 20 is now a positive number. You have a positive 20 right here. It says plus 20. So it's a positive 20. Why did that happen? That happened because you all have learned along the way with your sign rules that two negatives make a positive. So these two negatives are turning into that positive that we see right there in the middle. That's why that's happening. So again, I want to stress on all of the problems you're going to do today, because we're distributing a negative number, you are going to have to go through 3 steps. You'll start with your original problem. You'll get your double sign answer, which I don't love and I want you to fix. And you will do keep it, change it to give me the answer I want that only has one sign here in the middle instead of 2. So on every problem, you should go through this 3-step process that you're seeing here in front of you. All right, let's try another one. Let's try a negative 4 times a negative 2x plus 1. So a negative 4 times a negative 2x plus 1. All right, this problem is asking me to take negative 4 as my number, and to multiply it by my group, negative 2x plus 1. I'm going to start out the same way by looking at my sign. I've got a plus sign in here, so I'm going to bring a plus sign down and put it here. And I'm ready to go. So I'm going to take that -4 and distribute it to each member of the group. So -4 is going to get multiplied by each member of my group. So first up, we're doing -4 times -2x. -4 times -2x. A -4 times a -2 is a +8. And then I reattach my x. Next up, -4 times the second member of the group is -4 times 1. -4 times 1 is -4. So we end up with 8x plus -4. That is my double sign answer because I have that plus a negative. Don't love it, so we're going to keep it, change it, change it. So we're going to keep it, 8x, change it, plus to minus, change it, -4 to +4. So this is the answer that I want from you. I want 8x minus 4. Notice your 8x was positive and still is. And notice your -4 is still a -4. He's a -4 because he has that minus in front of him. That makes him negative. What happened here is you have a positive and a negative, and you all have learned along the way that a positive times a negative makes a negative. So that's how that's happening, is this positive times this negative is making a negative. So we're able to write that with one sign. Now, on this next one, we're going to do a -6 times x minus 5. So we want to take this number, -6, and we want to multiply it by the group, x minus 5. Let's get started. We've got a minus in our parentheses. So we're going to put a minus down here for our answer. And then we're going to distribute that -6 to each member of the group. So you'll do -6 times x. Now I want to point out something here. When you see this x and there's nothing in front of him, please remember, you've talked about this before, that when there's nothing in front of that x, there is an invisible 1 there. You may write that in if you want to. And as a matter of fact, I would suggest that you do. So we're doing a -6 times 1x. -6 times 1 is -6, and we reattach that x. Then we do -6 times the second member of our group, so -6 times 5, that is a -30. Whoops. So here's my double sign answer. I have -6x minus -30. Let's fix it. Let's fix it so I'll be happy with it. We keep it, -6x, change it, minus becomes plus, change it, -30 becomes +30. So the answer I'm going to want on this is -6x plus 30. Notice your 6x was negative, stays that way. Why is this 30 a plus 30 now? Why is he positive? Because these two negatives, negative times negative, turns into a positive, making that a plus sign. So all of this sign stuff is based on the sign rules that you already know. Now, when you look at this one, your first reaction might be, well, she wrote that down wrong because she didn't put a number outside of her parentheses. All she put was that negative sign. I didn't make a mistake. This is the way I intended to write this problem. When you look out in front of your parentheses and all you see is this negative sign and there's no number over here with him, I want you to know that just like that last problem with the x, there is an invisible 1 here. And I would write that if I were you. So when you see a negative outside of parentheses alone, that's not a misprint. That means there's a 1 there that is invisible and you should add him in. So this problem is asking you to take the number -1 and multiply it by the group 4x plus 3. Now your group is an addition problem, so I would put my plus sign down here and get ready. All right, so here we go. First you're going to do a -1 times your first member of the group. So -1 times 4x. -1 times 4 is -4. Reattach the x. Then you're going to do -1 times the second group member. So -1 times 3. -1 times 3 is -3. So we have -4x plus -3. Don't like plus a negative. We don't like that double sign, so we keep it. -4x. Change it from plus to minus. Change it from -3 to +3. So we end up with -4x minus 3. This is the answer I would want for this problem. Notice your 4 was negative and stays that way. Why? And notice this time that your 3 was negative and appears to stay that way. So why did that happen? Well, because you had a positive times a negative. Right here, positive times negative makes negative. So it makes that one sign of negative. So really what's happening here when we do the keep it, change it thing is that the two signs are combining to make one sign. And they do that according to the sign rules that you already know. That a negative times a negative makes a positive. So when I see minus a negative, I can put one positive for that. And a positive times a negative makes a negative. So when I see a positive and a negative together, I can put one sign for that, make it a negative. So it's all based off of these sign rules that you have known forever. All right, now, we're going to do 2 more problems. And I want you on this one to copy it down, pause the video, copy it down, try it on your own first before I show you how it works. So you're doing -3 times 6x plus 5. Pause your video, copy it down, see how you do. Okay, let's see how you did. Taking the number -3, multiplying it by the group, 6x plus 5. First thing you should have done is take the plus sign from the parentheses and write it down for your answer. You're going to multiply -3 by each member of this group. So first, you should have done -3 times 6x. Hopefully for that you got -18x. Then -3 times the second member of your group, -3 times 5 is a -15. We don't want to say plus a negative, so we keep it, -18x. Change it, positive to negative. Change it, -15 to 15. So -18x minus 15 should have been your final answer. The reason for what's happening here, your -18 stayed negative, but notice your -15 stayed negative. The reason that happened is because this positive times this negative makes this one sign of negative. Hopefully you got that one right. If you didn't, make sure you look at this and see what happened. All right, and then finally, let's do -5 times 2x minus 3. Pause the video, try this one, and then unpause and watch the solution. All right, so this problem is asking you to take the number -5 and multiply it by the group 2x minus 3. First things first, you have a minus in your parentheses, so bring your minus down and put it here. We're going to multiply each member of our group by -5. -5 times 2x should have given you -10x. -5 times 3 should have given you -15. So you should have had -10x minus -15. We don't want two signs here, we want just one, so we keep it -10x, change it minus to plus, change it -15 to +15. So hopefully you ended up with -10x plus 15. Notice your 10 stayed negative. Your -15 is now a positive, and that happened because negative times negative made that positive right there. So that's what you're going to be doing today. Please use your calculator to help with your sign numbers so we don't make mistakes with those. To kind of give you a sneak preview of what's coming up, I'm just going to be honest and tell you that in addition to not liking double signs like minus a negative and plus a negative, I am also not a huge fan of keep it, change it, change it. So in the next video, I will be showing you a way to avoid keep it, change it altogether and get this 3-step process down to just 2, copying the problem and then writing the answer. So we're going to cut out this step in a next video and go straight from here to here. So we'll talk about how that goes then. If you have any questions in the meantime, please let me know. Show your work on paper, of course, and make sure you submit a picture of that work with your problems. If you're still unsure of how to do that, then please, please, please let me know. Y'all have a good day.